9x squared plus 16y squared plus 18x plus 128y plus 121 equals 0 is the equation of a conic. It's an ellipse. Write the standard form of that conic. We can already see the answer there, but how would we know that if we didn't already have the answer? So this one's going to be a lot of steps. This is not an easy problem. So first step, I'm gonna go through the steps. So the trick on this one is we need to change to x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1 form. So that's what we're doing. That's what this is all about. We need to change the form. So how do we do it? So step number 1. Gather x's and y's separately move number to the other side. So I'm going to basically jump this number to the other side. So here we go. I'm going to gather 9x squared and 18x together. I'm going to leave a blank, and I'm going to gather 16y squared and 128y. And like I said, I'm going to jump the 121 to leave a blank. I'm going to leave a blank after the x stuff and a blank after the y stuff. And I'm going to move the 121. I'm going to subtract 121 from both sides. So it'll become minus 121 on the other side. Let me make this equal sign a little bigger so we're clear. We have a left side and a right side. Okay. In fact, maybe I'll even put in a line of separation there. I don't like that line. There we go. So, okay. So now, that's step 1. Step 2. Factor out the number in front of x squared and y squared. So I'm going to factor out that number. So in this case 9. And what does that leave? 2x, right? Because 9 times x squared will go back to 9x squared. 9 times 2 will go back to 18x. And leave a blank there. Plus 16. Y squared. You divide in your calculator. Take 128, divide by 16. Is it 8? Yeah, it's 8. Y, and again, leave a blank, equals minus 121. Right? So, because 16 times 8 will go back to 128. All right. So, and let me get rid of this stuff too. Okay. So, now we have to find what goes in those blanks. Our goal here is we're trying to get it to look like that and that, which means it's got to have parentheses squared. Now there's a particular way. We've done it a while ago, but I know it's been a long while, so let me remind you. In fact, actually, let me change the color there to where we were at. So, middle number divided by 2 squared, put in each blank. These blanks here and here. What am I talking about? Middle number. This is how you make, it's called completing the square. Let me write that. Complete the square. We're trying to complete the square, meaning make it a 2 power. Square means 2 power. I'm trying to make these parentheses here, I'm trying to make this whoops, that wasn't helpful. Trying to make this, well, let me back that up. I'm trying to make this and this become like this, a squared, and this. Trying to make those parentheses become parentheses to the second power. So how do you do that? Well, how you do that is this trick right here that I'm talking about. I'm saying you've got to take the middle number over 2 squared. So this is the middle number. So 2 over 2 squared, that's 1 squared, that's 1. So that's what you've got to put in that blank. So you're going to put a 1 right there. And then for the other one, same kind of thing. You got to take the middle number over 2 squared. That's 4 squared, 16. That's what you got to put there. That'll be exactly the right number to make it factor as, I did it again, didn't I? As a square and as a square. That's what we want. We want this to factor as a square and this. If you look at them, you can tell it already, right? This is x plus 1 squared now. This is x plus 4 squared. If you're not sure, you'll see it in a minute. We'll do more of it. All right, so now let's get back to it. So I'm thinking the best way to say this, right? This is the confusing step. Whatever is done to the left side, we must do the same to the right side. We must do the same to the right side. Whatever we did to the left side, we have no choice. We must do the same to the right side. Well, let's carefully write this out. What do we have now on the left side? We have 9x squared plus 2x. I'll put those numbers in there in a minute. Y squared plus 8y. And let me keep this line coming down. This is still equals. That's still the equal sign. And what did we do here? We put in a brand spanking new plus 1 and a brand spanking new plus 16. Now, you can't just stick brand new stuff in the left side without doing the same thing to the right side. You have to do the same thing to the right side that you do to the left side, right? If the left and right sides are equal beforehand, and then you treat them the same, they'll be equal afterwards. You've got to treat them the same. So this brand spanking new plus 1 and plus 16, I've got to have that on the other side as well. But you might think, okay, so just put a plus 1 and a plus 16. But that's not actually correct. By putting a plus 1 right here, I did not just add 1 to the left side, did I? What did I actually do? If I was to multiply this out right now, that'd be 9x squared, 18x. That's no big deal. That's what's been there from the beginning, 9x squared, 18x, whatever. But 9 times 1, right? 9 times this 1, there'd be a brand spanking new 9 that was never there before. That's what I really did. I got to get rid of this. I really have to add 9 to the right side. Why? Because I really added 9 to the left side when I put that 1 in the parentheses under the influence, so to speak, of that 9. That really increased the left side by 9, didn't it? If I was to multiply that out, I would see it clearly. There's a brand spanking new 9 that was never there before, right? We just had 9x squared and 18x. We didn't have anything here. By putting a 1 in those parentheses, I actually added 9 to the left side, so I've got to add 9 to the right side. Same thing over here. This 16, if I multiplied it out, go back to 16y squared 128y, no big deal. Those were there before, 16y squared, 128y. But there was nothing else. And now there'd be 16 times 16. What is that? 256. There'd be a brand spanking new 256. So I don't need to add 16. I need to add 256 to the right side, because that's what I actually did to the left side by putting a brand spanking new 16 under the influence of another 16. I really increased the left side by 256. I've got to also increase the right side by 256, right? Whatever you do to one side, you have to do the same thing to the other, so that you don't really change anything. And we're always doing that in math. That's logical, right? If the left and the right were equal before, and you treat them the same, you actually add the same amount to both sides, not just in appearance, but in actuality, then if they were equal before, they'll be equal afterwards. All right, so let's get rid of all this stuff and get back to business. So now, that's what we have to do. So let's now on step 5, factor the two parentheses as squared. So I'm going to factor the left and the right side as squared. So this 9 sits out here. This now factors. Here, let me take it slower. 2 parentheses, x is here. What can multiply to be 1? It's plus 1, right? It multiplies to be 1, adds to be 2, which is really x plus 1 squared. See how it made it factor as a square? Beautiful. That 1 did it. It made it factor as the same thing twice, which is a square, plus the other one. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to be y. What multiplies to be 16 adds to be 8? 4 and 4, which is the same thing twice, so we say squared. See how it made them? That 16 was just what it needed to factor as a square. So that's the whole trick about this middle number right here, this middle number over 2 squared. It gives it, and we did it right here, and we did it right here, it gives you just the right number, the 1 and the 16, to put in the parentheses, so that later when you factor this and this, it factors as the same thing twice, squared, squared. That's how that works. It's beautiful. Now, what's happening on the right side? Well, it's whatever, just use your calculator. The right side is minus 121 plus 9 plus 256. I'm going to use my calculator. I'm getting 144 on the right side. All of this, 144. Okay, we're getting close now. We've almost got it. It's been a long problem. Last step, number 6. Divide through by the number on the right to make it equal 1. Remember, we always have to get a 1 on the right side of the equation. So let's divide through by 144, 144, 144. Okay, so what becomes of this? Let me write it down here. 9x plus 1 squared over 144 plus 16 y plus 4 squared over 144 equals 1. And then we can simplify this. 9 goes into 144. What is it? Just divide on your calculator. I'm getting 16 times. 16 goes in there 9 times. So then we basically got it. It's x plus 1 squared over 16 plus y plus 4 squared over 9 equals 1. We did it. We changed it into the normal form we use to graph. Why do we want to do all that? Because now we could easily graph this thing. They're not going to ask us to graph it, but we could. We could easily graph it. We could find the center. You can tell the center right now just by looking at it. It's -1, -4, right? Opposite, opposite. You could find the focus points if you wanted to. You could do anything in real life applications that you wanted to now that we made this change. So So this equation started way up here in this totally messy form, and we did all these steps to change it to this nice form. So this is for sure on the next exam. Make sure you practice this. We went through all those steps. The key step being this middle number over 2 squared put in each blank. And that made it factor. That's the same thing twice, which was squares, and then we could get it in the right form. And that's a very usable form. We like it. That's why we do this thing called completing the square. That's what all this is called right here, completing the square, where we do the middle number over 2 squared and add that to both sides in each blank, because that makes things factor as the same thing twice or squared, and squared form is a very useful form for graphing and finding things in the real world.